Hello, everybody, and welcome to you in this Access Talks number 4. Today we are live from the van offices of the VPLP Naval Architecture Office. Today I'm with Vincent Lauriot Prevost. Hello, Vincent.
Hello, Nicolas.
Vincent, you are one of the two founders of the VPLP office. We don't present VPLP. You are the most titled naval architecture office in the world for the competition, sail competition. You have signed the most dreaming hull team sails racers. You have developed extraordinary catamarans racers too. And today I'm with Bruno Belmont too. Bruno, hello.
Hello, Nicolas.
Bruno, you are a product designer at the Excess Catamaran brand. Today we will speak about naval architecture and the role of the architecture in the development of a new brand. My first question is for you, Bruno. In what way did naval architecture play a major role in the birth of the Excess Catamaran brand?
Okay, so to explain, for every new design, we start with basic design criteria. So how many cabins, how many heads, how big should be the galley and everything. That gives you what should be inside the box. Then we decide where should be each item in this box. And then we make a work of styling. We do the design exterior styling to make sure it complies with the look that we want to provide to the boat. And when we have done this kind of very early project, we check that the basic numbers are good. But with Excess, we went further than that because we really wanted to bring more pleasure between the two anchorages. And we wanted the guy at the wheel to get pleasure, to get sensation when he was steering the boat. So to do that, we went on two fields. One was to locate the steering wheel at the best possible location of the boat. And for that, we looked at what the monohull history had brought over the years, and what they have all done today is two wheels on the aft end of the boat as outside as possible to have good vision forward to the sea, to the sails, and being part of the cockpit, you're also with your guests or with your friends when you go sailing. So the location of the steering was for us major. And then the second one was to look at every naval architecture items and criteria that we could improve to improve the sensation and the performance of the boat.
What are these parameters?
So the first one, the most obvious one, is the ratio sail area over displacement. That gives you kind of a lighthouse to follow and to make sure that you provide the right level of performance and the right time for you to kill the engine in light airs and get sailing pleasures. So we had numbers in mind. To achieve those numbers, we could increase the sail area. Of course, that's the easy way. But if we do that, of course, we lose a lot of, we increase the cost of the boat significantly. So some customers will not follow us. And the other way, smarter way, is to reduce the displacement of the boat in every possible area. So some very global ones, like the division of the hull length by the platform length, is a coefficient that will give you how performing will the boat be. Because if you have a high number, that means that the platform is proportionally smaller, and therefore there is less GRP in this platform, and therefore there is less displacement, so you gain weight, so you have a lighter boat. Another coefficient is the length times the beam. Of course, you need some beam, and of course, you need some length. The length is basically given by the display inside the hull, how many cabins, how many heads. But the beam, you need some for stability, of course. But once you get to this stability, you can either stay there or you can increase it a little bit to have more comfort in the saloon, in the cockpit, and everything. So on Excess, we decided to closely look at these numbers to make sure that every inch was going to provide good comfort into the boat, and every inch we could remove was going to save weight, and so to have a more performing boat. And throughout the design, all the Excess design team worked in designing the woodwork to the lightest possible way, looked at how we could make a system simpler so that it works same way for the customers, but with less weight. And parallel to that, at VPLP, they were working on purely naval architecture numbers, like the prismatic coefficient, the draft, and everything. But I think Vincent will explain that much better than me.
So, Vincent, when you are from the top competition sector, what's your reaction when a shipyard comes to you to improve the performance of a new brand of catamaran?
Reaction is obviously it's our job to part of the job of VPLP is dedicated to performance as a part of cruising. So speaking about performance is something that we are quite used to it, and we know that when Bruno speak about saving weight for gaining performance, that's a way. The other way, which we can do now with our racing approach, is saving drag, and saving drag is linked with the shape of the hulls, and so analyzing the shape of the hull to save drag is something which is not very much costly for the boat builder, of course, but it's quite efficient. We did on an excess, we did a kind of 3 to 4 different models of hulls. We have run on a CFD program.
What is a CFD program? Can you explain that to our viewers?
Yes, of course. Yeah, sorry to be on this acronym. CFD is computational fluid dynamics, and it's a tool which replaces the tank testing we did use 10 to 15 years ago, and it's quite an accurate tool, which is easy for our engineers to work with. I would say not easy, but it's fast enough to be able to make lots of different candidates for hulls. And the results of that, just speaking about the hulls, is we can gain something like between 5 to 10% of the hull drags compared with the original hulls we had tested before. So that's an improvement. Other improvement is how to position the rudders, how to position the propeller shaft, and how to position the keels, because we've got keels on this boat.
Many parameters.
So all these parameters give us ideas on performance, give us ideas on the balance, helm balance of the boat, give us ideas on the leeway, and by this method of analysis like that, we can, putting that together, improve quite significantly performance of the boat, linked to the weight saving. It's going to be something which is much more polyvalent that we've done before without these tools.
So Bruno, you have 3 projects from VPLP. How was the decision made? I imagine some of the projects were easier to choose, some other was less attractive. How was the decision made?
Basically, we had 3 possible cases. One, we are gaining weight. We are saving weight, and so gaining performance. And it was making no rise in the cost of the boat, and it was not making the sailing more complicated. So
wow, so it's a dream.
Yeah, that we quote all of those. That was the easy ones. There were another case which is it doesn't cost more, but you save weight, but you will have some kind of maneuvers or some kind of use of the boat a little more complicated than the original design.
Can you give us an example?
Yes, for example, originally on the XS11, the mast was designed to be at 50% from the bow. But when Vincent and his team came up with the structural analysis, they suggested that we move the mast forward a little bit to 43% instead of 50 in order to be in front of the coach roof on a structural bulkhead. So there was a big gain in structure, therefore in weight and therefore in cost. But on the other side, that meant a longer boom, and a longer boom is making a bigger mainsail, so more impressive when you're jibing. But when we took the analysis together, we decided to go for it because we thought there was still a very clear gain altogether.
And what about the third possibility?
The third is the most painful one because you actually save weight, so you gain performance, but it's going to cost more. So for give you two examples, one was whether we would put carbon or not on the boat. And for that, we had a big team joining together because the commercials were there, because they are the guys who will sell the boat. So if you put the price too high, it's more difficult. So we wanted them to participate in those decisions together with VPLP, together with the design team. And so regarding the carbon, we thought it's a big increase in cost. It's not going to be visible for the customer, so let's not go for that. On the contrary, when we looked at the cost of the Dynema steering wheels, we decided to go for it because there was a real change in the feeling at the wheel. There was more response. It was more liveful to steer with those Dynema cables, and so we decided to go for it.
Vincent, while three models of the XS brand have now come out, what's your assessment of the birth of this new brand?
I think it's quite promising to work on such a project, and I mean to be able to have a kind of a transverse analysis and in our team, coming from cruising, coming from racing, and coming from engineering too, and make things working together. It gives us the capacity of making a much more finished and reaching goal project, and we've been working on structural aspects with finite element models, for example, and we've been working with a velocity prediction program, and which means that at the end, the boat that is going to be launched is a boat which will be the boat which has been thought at the early beginning, and that's what we want to achieve, and that's what we are going to achieve together.
For you, Bruno, what lesson did you learn from this adventure?
It was an adventure. Well, first, I remember 30 years ago, I was working with VPLP for the first time, and it was to design and build racing trimarans. And they were the most racing machine at the time. I think there were 3 people at VPLP. We were 3 people at the JTA. It was purely seriously built, but with very, very little. When I came to VPLP in Vannes, starting to work with engineers of the most highest level in the world in terms of structure or in terms of prediction of performance, I was really intimidated because the world has changed. I mean, there are 12 here in Vannes. Performance of boats, designing boats that are sometimes around 50 knots. So it's another world to what I've known before. But all those guys very simply came to us, really came inside the project to bring ideas, to bring counsel, and it was just fantastic to work with those guys, and I would do it again, and I would never do a boat without them again.
Wow. Thank you both to have shared your passion between XS Catamarans team and VPLP teams. Now it's time to answer the question of our viewers. Questions that are coming from the live on our YouTube channel. I check with the technical team for receiving the question. The first question.
So first question is, what is coming from competition, from racing, and that can be applied on a cruising catamaran?
So, question from YouTube channel. What is coming from competition and will be applied on a cruising catamaran? And it's a question for Vincent.
Yeah, I mean that's what we try to do with Mark from decades is how to use our what we learn in competition and apply it to different other support like cruising, for example. And for sure, as I was saying together, all the tools we have been developing are adapted now for improving the new catamarans we are thinking with Bruno, and to give some examples, and we say on the if you see these pictures here, you just behind Bruno, and you see there is a sail. This sail is a Code Zero, and Code Zero is a sail that is now on cruising catamarans, and this sail allow us to sailing instead of motoring at lower wind speed, for example, and faster, of course, by the same time. Same for rudders, same for keels, and we have lots of developments on keels, and we hopefully will reduce the leeway of the boats by performing on the new keel design, and all these things are. I wouldn't speak about the gears, equipment, and all the cables, which are now very different as they were, I would say, 20 years ago. So that's why we have always tried to put our two specialty in common with Mark. Is cruising must feed the racing, and racing must feed the cruising.
Wow, a good balance. Other question?
Yes, there's a question from Glenn, who is in the USA, who is asking. Glenn is asking, saying that there is some shared molds between the Lagoon 40 and the XS12. So how to explain the difference between an XS12 and the Lagoon 40? I guess in terms of performance, namely.
So there a question from Glenn in the US. It's about the shared molds on some excess catamarans and some lagoons. How did you optimize the performance on excess?
So let's be very clear there. There is the XS12 and the Lagoon 40 have some molds in common, but not all of them. And it's true that the whole improvement was made on XS11 because that was the last one, and it was coming completely from scratch with not the use of any tooling before. But even on the 12, we worked on the platform length, we worked on the keel shape, we worked on everything we could do to improve the boat in every aspect. But of course, the big difference of XS is made on the XS11 today, yes.
Other question?
Yes, there is a question here from Instagram saying, why don't we use all the spaces in the mid-section, like in the Lagoon 50, on the XS15? You understand? On the mid-section of the boat, on the Lagoon 50, there's a lot of usage of space, and he's asking why it's not on the XS15.
So a technical question on the mid space that would not be used aboard an XS15 in comparison with a similar size on a lagoon.
I think when the approach was to save weight, saving weight means simplicity. So when you don't need completely to have something on the boat, remove it because you're going to save weight. There is over 1,000 kilograms difference, 2,000 pounds difference between the XS and the Lagoon. And this is by making those kind of decision of simplicity that we could achieve this goal.
No inside molds, for example, on the XS11. Inside molds in the cabins, front cabins.
No.
So other question?
Yes, there is one question about why having chosen keels rather than dagger boards when designing the XS.
Keels and not dagger boards, a traditional question. I begin with Vincent.
Yes, I think it's a question of simplicity and maintenance mainly. So saying that we know that we have keels and not dagger boards. Maybe it will change one day, not today, I think. But what we aim to do with these keels and make them as efficient as possible and improve their efficiency by studying different shapes, different sections, and different features on it in order to have a boat reduce leeway and reduce the induced drag of the platform itself when sailing.
The answer of the shipyard.
No, I agree with the simplicity and the overall cost of the boat, because that is much more expensive. Of course, we had this discussion very early when we started to work on the Access project. We had also in mind that most of our sailors are sailing in shallow waters, and in shallow water a keel is more efficient. We also will never say never. So the first generation, we didn't want to change completely the world. We wanted to still have an easy-to-sail cruising catamaran, where you don't have the knowledge of well adjusting a dagger board, because it needs more skills to do that. So we went for simplicity, as Vincent said it, and that simplicity meant fixed keel.
I will add something.
You had.
If we find a system which is simple, low cost, and more efficient than the keel today, we will adapt them, no doubt.
It's innovation. So another question?
Yes, a question from Vicky asking, is there a code zero on excess catamarans?
A question from Vicky. Is there a code 0 on aboard excess catamaran?
It's an option, and if you pick the pulse line option on an excess catamaran, you get a bigger code 0 with a longer pool and a higher mast. So yes, there are actually two code 0 options on the excess.
It's precise answer. Another question?
Other question, sounds that excess catamarans are more sport-driven than lagoon. What's the main difference between both brands? What's the benefit from Groupe Beneteau to launch excess when lagoon is the leader?
3 questions in one question. I will synthesize with a question. What is the reason why the Beneteau Group decide to launch a second catamaran brand?
Okay, I could answer making an analogy with the monohulls. Beneteau has a brand which is Oceanis, another one which is First. Why? Because the sailors are different. Some are expecting performance, sensation, some are expecting more comfort. On the catamaran market, it was very well apart. There were some very performing, almost racing catamarans that had very little comfort, and that's 10% of the market. 90% of the rest of the market was purely comfort. We thought that seeing those monohull sailors coming on the catamaran market, mostly because the family decided they didn't want to heel anymore, we had to provide a different answer than the pure comfort, because those guys were used to have sensation at the wheel, were used to enjoy the time spent between two anchorages, and Excess is here to answer for those guys these sensation requirements.
At last, with Excess Catamaran, you inaugurate a new segment of the catamaran market.
Yeah, we'd like to occupy the balance between comfort and performance with a very identified boat, and that's why we had VPLP work a lot on improving the possibility to gain weight and the possibility to gain performance, because to save weight, and gain performance, because that was exactly what we felt was required by those new customers.
Another question?
Yes. Other question from David.
David has a question through our YouTube channel.
How many years off is the use of electric motors, do you think, in production catamarans such as Excess, as I am sure this could be a significant overall weight saving and thus performance?
Wow, it's a question about electric engine aboard sailing catamarans. A question to the shipyard and after to the architect.
Okay. What we need to know is that we know what is the right architecture to do an electric propulsion. The problem we have today is that although it would work, it will burn more fuel than if you have a good diesel engine. I'm really sad to say that, because I would like to say we got a new provider of energy and everything is working. Today it's not the reality. So if we were to launch an electric propulsion for a catamaran, so an Excess catamaran, it would burn more fuel for the customer and cost more. So we think we need to protect this architecture because it will be used one day, but we really need to search on what will bring the energy to these batteries and then to these electric motors in a clean way, in a green way, in a long-lasting way. So that's why today we don't have an option.
So the vision of the naval architect.
Obviously, electric engine is a goal. It's really a goal. But as far as the technology is not really ready to fulfill that, we are expecting it as soon as possible. But I would say one thing is another way to think about the problem of reducing carbon impact is just make the boat simpler, make the boat lighter, make the boat faster, and use a sail in 6 knots of wind instead of 12 knots or 14 knots of wind, and you will reduce your fuel consumption, and you will reduce your impact of 40, 50%, 60%. It's just a way of that has to be in the mind of people too. If you want change nothing and make the things change, there's something which is wrong.
Global balance.
You have to work on all you have to put your question on yourself too and say, okay, I'm concerned with this problem. I'm ready to reduce my consumption, and I will sail faster.
Yeah.
I won't use my engine.
So another question.
Yes, from Eric. Eric asked, how are you guys organized to develop a new boat?
Wow, it's a very large question. How are you organized to develop a new boat? I will begin with Vincent.
I think in terms of naval architecture, we've got people dedicated on all the cruising aspects. That's in Paris. We've got some people dedicated on the racing aspects, which are in Vannes. We've got some people dedicated on the design aspect, which is important, exterior design. We work with Nowtown interior design, but it's not integrated in VPLP, of course. But we have to work together, that's for sure. And we've got another team which work on this aspect, which is engineers and structural engineers to optimize the structure, and of course a performance engineer to optimize the performance, the drag, and things like that. So all things together, maybe in VPLP at different, there will be 7 or 8 people which will be involved in the project at different stage. Not everybody at the same time at different stage, which is quite huge and wide panel of competencies from the design to the architecture, go to structure, and we have to put all these things together in a right way to work with the boatyard, because we are not only our work has to be shared with the boatyard and with Bruno's team, and I think they are pretty big team in their side too, and so that's really something. It's a shared job from the early beginning. We've got the design brief. We work at the end. If we are still in the design brief, I think we've won, and we like win. We like winning racing too.
So, and what about the boatyard? How are you organized at CNB?
So at the VPLP team, they also have a project manager who will be dedicated to the project. Here with the CNB and XS, we also have a project manager who will be following the project from day one until the boat is under production long enough to have achieved the goals of hours and money and cost. And this project manager will be helped in the early days by a more technician guy who will help working with the designers, working with the interior designers to improve and to make sure we make the right decision technically so that the yard is capable of producing. And then this project manager will be helped by people who will be modeling the outside of the boat following what they receive from VPLP. So it can be 1 or 2 guys. There will be a team dedicated to the design of the GRP, the composite side of the boat. They will design all the structure together following the VPLP requirements. Then there is a team working on the accommodation, designing everything that's going to be inside the boat. So this team is more driven by Nauta, but we also work because of the structural points with the VPLP. And this can be up to 4 people designing woodwork. Then there is people designing the system, so the engine, the electricity. On those guys won't be full-time on the project, but they will be sometimes to time. And all this is providing basically the development of the boat. And then there is another team, which is the method people, who will take all this knowledge and transfer it to the production line so that the people on the assembly line get enough good information to produce the boat according to what it's designed for. And so the project manager will ensure with those method people, that can be up to 5, that the boat is complying with what was designed at the design office.
How many time to develop a new boat?
From the day we start developing, it's between 18 months to 24 if it's a very complicated boat. And that's including between 2 and 6 months where the boat is on the assembly line and we check, improve, and adapt the design.
To industrialize production.
Yes, and that's a team of between 15 and 17 people at the max, but not all during all the projects. Or maybe it's 6, 7 people during all the projects.
Other question?
Yes, there are more questions on electric engines and batteries. So there was one question saying when we're going to start to see more electric engines with bigger batteries, but I think we addressed this. There's another question saying, can you explain the benefit of lithium batteries and when will this be available, lithium batteries on the boats?
Well, benefit of lithium batteries aboard a boat.
So yes, it is clearly a benefit in all kind of ways. First, it's much lighter. It's 4 times lighter. You can run those batteries 6,000 cycles instead of 300 for lead batteries. So the life lasting is between 10 to 20 years. It recharges in 2 hours compared to 12 hours for lead batteries. And when I say the cycles are 6,000 compared to 300, imagine you live on board a lead battery boat. It means you have to change your batteries every year. And there we come to analyzing in terms of cost, which is also in favor on the long run in lithium batteries, because if you live on board a boat and spend 5 years on the boat, it will cost you probably around 30,000 euro less to choose from a big investment of lithium batteries in the beginning than to stay with lead batteries, because you will have to change the batteries, but because also you will need to run your engine much more to charge your lead batteries, and you will need to have more maintenance on your engines also. So there is no question we should go for that. We are moving to that. We are preparing the option on all our boats. It's just a question of maybe months, because we want to make sure there is no problem in the design of this new implementation. But definitely, it's clearly a future on sailing boats.
So thank you for this question. We have had a scoop with a new battery range possibility at XS Catamaran, and I imagine Lagoon too. Another question?
Yes, another question from Stanton.
Stanton has a question.
Explain the benefits of the target top of the opening sunroof on the XS.
The benefit of the opening sunroof aboard XS Cats.
I don't. There is a weight benefit because it's not GRP, it's cloth, so it's lighter. And then we see it more like a benefit of usage, because when you've reached your day of sailing and you are protected by the sun, but the sun is setting down, you open up, you see the stars, you have fresh air. I mean, and it's just magic. I mean, something that we are not used anymore on catamarans, but remember 20, 25 years ago, that's all the catamarans were like this. They were looking at the stars at night, and that's so good. The other thing for people who like sailing is that when you open it, when you go sailing, you see your sails much better. So it's another benefit.
Another question from the YouTube channel.
Other question, when and how we will be able to test the boats now due to all boat shows cancellations?
Oh, it's a question about actuality. When will be and where it will be that possible to test an XS catamaran with all the boat shows cancellation? It's for the shipyard.
Yeah, I'm Mrs. Irma. Basically, we're getting organized so that what was supposed to be the last days of the Cannes Boat Show, we want to organize some private visits of the excess boats. We're getting organized for that. We don't know yet if it will be allowed or not, but we're doing everything as if it was. And further after that, we will do and organize some sea tests along the Mediterranean coast. So yes, there will be possibilities to see, despite the COVID-19, there will be some sea tests possible.
You adapt yourself.
We must.
We have to.
And also in the US.
And of course, it's in Europe, but in the US, I think so.
Yes, same in the US, of course, yes.
So private sea test organized all over the coast in Europe and the US. Another question?
Yes, one question about for Vincent, I guess. What does racers who are used to work with VPLP think about their design office working with cruising boats? Is it not a bad
Image.
for the office?
So a question for Vincent. You have you are used to work with racers. What's the image they have from your office who works with production catamaran sailboat?
I don't see why we should be in this situation. I mean, I think all these guys race the boats, and when they reach the arrival in the Caribbean or Brazil, and they come back with their family, and it's in November, and they are going to have their holidays in December or on Christmas and so on. Most of the time, they rent a cruising cat, comfortable, and they sail in family, and they like it and they appreciate it. So I mean, hopefully there are multiple ways of enjoy sailing, and for myself, I enjoy sailing with my family on a comfortable cruising cat and not on a racing boat. That's for sure.
For sure. No opposition between sailing and cruising.
No, I mean our job is just to succeed in what we intend to do. So for a racing boat is winning race, and for a cruising boat is having a boat which is successful. And when we reach this goal, we're happy. That's in our brain, I think.
Thank you. Other question?
Yes, one of the last question, I guess, came from Maxime on Instagram, saying that...
Maxime from Instagram, one of the last questions.
Yes, asking, saying that there's competition to Lagoon with, for instance, Fontaine Pajot, but who are the other players and competitors to access them in that position in the market?
It's a question about competition. We know that between Lagoon, the competitor is Fontaine Pajot. Who is the competitor of excess catamarans?
If there is one brand, it would be Nautitech, which is basically with the same DNA of a good balance between performance and comfort. So yes, I would say that's the only brand today that is on basically the same field.
Yeah, you have opened and enlarged a new segment.
Yeah, well, this segment was the original segment of cruising catamarans. They were the balance, and the trend moved to more comfort, leaving this space empty, and that's why we decided to jump in.
Now the last question, maybe. Time is running.
No, there is no new question.
No new question from live, so that will be time to leave you, dear viewers. Thank you very much, both. Thank you very much, Bruno.
Thanks, Nicolas.
Thank you very much, Vincent.
Thanks, Nicolas.
So I will leave you now. Thank you to have followed us today for this first live interview in these Excess Talks. See you soon on Yachting Art, and don't hesitate to join us on our YouTube channel and on Facebook too. See you soon. Bye-bye.